Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to Rise Up After Dark. Thank you for tuning in. Of all the places in all the world that you could be, we are so glad you're here with us. We do hope it is a good now, whether you listen morning, noon, or night. We call it Rise Up because that's exactly what it's time to do. This is the show where we let our hair down, unless it's hot where you are. We do our own research, we have a beverage, and we bring on our expert guests, friends, our colleagues in the industry. And tonight, I am so thrilled to report that we have the most returning guest. He is a multiple founder. He is a venture capitalist, and we have learned an aspiring DJ, maybe coming to Burning Man or a stage near you sometime soon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back our friend, Mr. William Quigley. William, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to be here with you as always.
Good to be with you guys.
DJ Quigs.
Yeah. I held off on the, but it seems appropriate. We kid, but you are probably the only person I know who has a DJ set in his house just in case he's got to throw a party where a DJ is going to come. So kudos to you.
Admit something? I have a DJ set up in my place here right now.
You never know when you're going to need a DJ set up.
And I will tell you, for your audience and you guys, I said, hey, turn it way down. So,
so the party in back is still happening, but just like quietly, it's a silent disco.
Yes, with all kinds of extra instruments.
Okay, this is the question I've got to know: is do you have a place you regularly stay where you don't have a DJ set?
Not right now. No, every place has some kind of
Oh my gosh,
equipment for people, because I found I enjoy that more than a random Spotify track.
Yeah, of course. So what you make a plan, you're like, okay, I'm going to be in Aspen. You put it out on Twitter and you're like, who wants to come do a set? And people are just like, yeah, I'll stop by on Wednesday.
Not on Twitter, but WhatsApp. Yeah.
How do you come to know so many DJs? Is it the Miami connection or just you're a fortunate guy?
In Miami. And but let's be real. If there's two people sitting at a bar, at least one of them's a DJ right now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know too many people who aren't DJs. I am not a DJ, but I travel with them.
I mean, hell, even Shaq is a DJ.
Yeah.
Everyone is a DJ now. Yeah.
Yes, it is pretty amazing, but it's also fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I am surprised then because I'm pretty sure of the four of us, none of us are DJs. So, the crypto to DJ ratio is low tonight.
No, but one of my DJs who lives in Miami, or one of my friends is a DJ and he lives in Miami. He's DJ Buys and Tries. So good. Shout out to Eric Goldman, DJ Buys and Tries.
Oh my gosh, DJ Buys and Tries. Okay, if you've got a question about DJing, or probably better, blockchain, venture, you're a first-time founder, or you're about to plan your exit, or you just want to know how all this stuff works, then let us know. We're here to answer your questions. Somebody in the TikTok chat asked a question about a new token launching on the BNB chain that I have never heard of, called BNB Attestation Services. I don't know about you guys, but usually when a new token is launching, if I haven't heard about it, if I haven't seen their products first, generally speaking, I stop paying attention. I turn the page.
Especially if it's on BNB, because it just made a new all-time high, which means every grifter on earth is going to start launching shit on it just to try to capitalize on that momentum. So exactly. I would take a hard pass.
Alex, that is a good insight to how the market works. Remember when Base launched? Coinbase's Base?
Oh, yes.
And then everybody was on there. And then, of course, that never happened with meme coins and Solana, right?
No,
not at all.
Never.
Yeah, did you know that Base actually, since the Zora thing, are you hip to Zora, the social media platform over there? So it's like an Instagram clone, but everything is on chain. And at first it was like your posts were NFTs and people could collect them for a nominal fee. But then right after their airdrop happened, they did this pivot where every post is a fungible token. They made it into a token launchpad, basically a meme coin launchpad. And not only that, but you can turn on a creator token for your profile. Now, the play is they are pushing this as a way for creators to earn and for people to earn by supporting their favorite creators. You know, if you're following me or Alex or Will or something, you've been watching our videos for 5 years. Wouldn't it have been nice if there was a token affiliated with us? The argument is that you could have bought at the start. If we had a viral post, you could have bought that token and captured on the virality. But the problem I have with it is I think it's another example of like asking one token to do too many things. And the other problem I have is like, what about all my supporters who show up, who like everything, who watch every video, who are not well-funded? Like I should be able to airdrop them some tokens. I should be able to give them a way to earn tokens if I want. Tokens are infinitely programmable. What's to stop us from designing a token? I feel like that would create a better incentive. Like the real supporters, they get in truly cheap or free. And then anybody else who wants to capitalize is funding them. Really. They're not playing in some pump and dump. They're actually supporting that way. It's more like, I don't know, a better patronage, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. So I agree. There's been a lot of experiments with this, but nothing has taken off yet.
No.
Where you reward people who were formerly doing things without getting any compensation. You used to be able to get, or you still do, points at different companies and whatnot. But I haven't really seen it work yet with crypto, even though I've invested in some companies that have been trying to do it.
Yeah, and Zora now, because of this, has dethroned Solana as the place where most meme tokens, at least right now, are launched, because everybody wants to get in on this. And that's the problem, is like once you give the tokens away, or if there's a viral post, the incentive is dump it, make money. It's not like a sustainable growth engine.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if there is not a utility for the token, right? You need to feed the blockchain the token to conduct some operation on a smart contract or whatever. If there isn't a utility, and 99.9% of these chains don't have utility, then additional supply just hurts the price.
Yeah, plain and simple.
Yeah. And what I found to be an issue on Zora, because I've been posting on Zora and I forgot to post today, but I've been doing it for the past week or so. And what I found is there's a big financial incentive just to go follow the top 10 current biggest people, and then just spend your time when you're on Zora to just try to engage with them super quickly, get the token, sell and dump it immediately, and then just leave the Zora app. I feel that pull myself. I'm like, oh, I could just farm these top 5 that are the biggest ones, that have the biggest market caps associated to them as creators, as they make content, engage with it, dump it, and then my main purpose for being on Zora is over, and I leave the app and I go to the other social media sites that I actually want to be on, whether that's Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or TikTok, in order to consume the content that I actually want to consume. And I felt that natural pull myself, and I was like, ooh, this is a problem.
It's the problem with a lot of things in crypto, wherein like we struggle to get people to use it for sake of using it. And so you dangle a carrot. Right. And as with all things in crypto, that carrot is free money. And it's like, it's just really, really hard to keep that going if it's the only thing going for it, because you can't afford to do it forever. And if there's nothing else keeping anyone anywhere other than this like carrot dangling, which you may never get to, either it will become apparent that you'll never get the carrot and you'll bounce, or you'll get it and you'll bounce because nothing else was keeping you there.
Alex, we got a really good comment on this. Speaking of social experiments, Kaito. It's all over crypto Twitter. People who are unfamiliar can do a quick search to see that Kaito is an InfoFi protocol. That's the name they're giving trending projects like this, where projects allocate a percentage of their tokens to Kaito to distribute according to its algorithm, which basically says, hey, who out here is posting about this project? And you would think that that would incentivize somebody to, write a really great thread about your thing. But what it actually ends up doing is on every other comment, somebody is like, hey, Merry Christmas. Hope you have a good holiday. hashtag Polygon or something like that. Like that is what it has come to. And a lot of it is, as this commenter points out, like AI slop, and then the tokens dry up. And just like any other junk airdrop, your token is in the hands of people who don't really care about using your protocol. They just wanted to farm. On Kaito, they call them yaps. You know, it's hot and then it's not.
Having been in the gaming space for so many decades, I can tell you, whatever it is you do that on the surface seems like a cool thing to do for the community will be perverted into something bad. Always, always, always. It's so hard to think through all the ways people are going to just try to get the least amount of effort to get whatever little prize they want to get. And, you know, that's been the reason why you talk to old video game developers when you're thinking you've created some new concept or some clever new trick. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, we did that 20 years ago. And this is what will actually happen. And it'll happen very fast. So yeah, rewarding people for doing something, all it really does is it motivates people who weren't doing that before just to do the least amount of that activity to get the token, to dump the token. And then as a token becomes worthless, no one wants to do that thing anymore.
Yeah. I think especially because we never gave any of these things the chance to become anything without that mechanism in place. Like if you were to start from scratch today, it didn't exist before right this second, and you were to make RuneScape and have it be as monetized as it is right now, it would fail so hard. Everyone would hate it. It would be atrocious. But because it's been running for 20 years and there are so many people in there and there's so many things in there that like give it value outside of that, then you have the room to monetize like that. Like Clash of Clans didn't monetize the way that it is now right out the gate. Clash Royale, I mean, right now you can start up a fresh account and you can basically just like legendary chest all the way to a totally maxed out account very quickly just by paying for it. The number one player in the world on Clash Royale is 100% bought and paid for because they were willing to spend $5,000 to max out their base and just have the highest score, whatever. But like if that had been it from day one, the game would have failed instead of being where it is today, making $1 billion a year. So all these Web3 things are skipping the value building phase and trying to like juice themselves through the chunk of organic necessary growth with ridiculous incentive structures that end up poisoning the protocol forever. And I think dooming it long term before it even gets off the ground.
I mean, that's also much of the history of blockchain gaming.
Yeah. Oh right? Yeah, for sure.
Like it only attracted people who were trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
And it never attracted real players, or rarely. So we're still trying to figure out where the playability part of it dominates as a result of a blockchain.
Yeah, I think
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, I've been seeing the comment a lot lately, especially over the last few weeks when prices of lots of larger tokens were doing quite well. Why didn't Avalanche see the same kind of growth? And I had the same thought, William, wherein if Avalanche has largely tied its identity right now in the cultural, the talking spaces
the
as
zeitgeist.
Yeah, thank you. The place for gaming. And we haven't been able to nail like a realistic model for Web3 gaming, as it were, to get off the ground with anything other than what I would call tainted incentive models, just by trying to pump free money at people without establishing that anything is worth your attention without the free money. I feel like that's just missed so hard that people just have associated that with Avalanche fully, even though, like, as we saw, there's some pretty cool shit going for Avalanche right now, outside of the gaming niche.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, most blockchains have the ability to have the same capability, right? But what happens is the very early chains, the people who built those had no concept of what you would even do with them. So they said, I'm building a chain. What does it do? Whatever you want, right? Now, any venture capitalist knows that when somebody is hawking a technology to you, and you ask them, what does it do? Oh, it can do anything. That means nothing. right? It can do nothing because there's only so much attention that people have. And you have to tell them, oh, are you interested in, gaming? Then go here. And so that you will always see this as in any product life cycle, the later entrants will be trying to pick little verticals where they say we're like them, but we're different because we focus on this. And that makes a lot of sense. It's just there has to be people using it at some point. You can, for as good as Amazon is, who goes on Amazon to buy fashion apparel? No one, right?
Not high fashion anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we think of Amazon as like Walgreens or CVS or, an appliance store or Sears. We don't think of it as a place to get high-end apparel. And so niche retailers can do that. Blockchain, there's a lot of different chains that focus on different stuff, but with the exception of a few things like DeFi is a category where you do see chains really focus on, and because that there is utility to those things, right? People want to get their tokens and make more money. When you build out a DeFi network ecosystem on your chain, that so far seems to me to be the most enduring sort of thing that drives utility.
Yeah, and a lot of people come by and they ask us, we've had a couple questions tonight about so-called dino chains. The folks who maybe had a really successful ICO or somehow have unlocked what we might call the infinite money glitch and have the freedom and luxury to kind of build a long-term roadmap that they don't need to show results on. For example, Cardano, HBAR, XRP, Ripple. And Alex, Alex did this test. We had some friends come on. They're building a tool called UI Agent. And the idea is like, one of the things an agent should be able to do for you is to give you any kind of user experience you want. When you go to a website, you got to use their UX, but not everybody learns the same. Not everybody interacts the same kind of thing. And so they're like, well, we can use agents to fix this, prompt it, interact with whatever this website's API is. They had one for DeFi Llama. Now, to be fair, DeFi Llama notoriously doesn't report on every chain, every dollar of revenue. But Alex, just to test the app out, was like, let's do a revenue comparison, right, Alex, between Solana and Cardano. And though I'm sure Cardano has more revenue than this, what was it on the weekly or monthly time frame? Their revenue is like
negative 150,000.
It was, it was
compared
rough,
to about $10 million.
And there's not a lot of DeFi there. They have a tough hurdle for developers, I understand, because you got to program in Haskell, a language that not many people speak. It seems to me to be that is the case in a lot of the crypto space, that there is the brochure. I'm fast, I'm cheap, I'm going to do this, I've got this partnership, but then there's no revenue or nobody's building anything there, DeFi or whatever.
That is exactly correct. There was no one I knew building a blockchain for a specific purpose. And frankly, until my partner and I built Wax, and people really at the time in 2017 were like, why do you need a separate chain for video gaming or for, what would become NFTs? And we said, well, because Ethereum doesn't work at scale. It's so amazing to me that it took 5+ years for crypto people to realize Ethereum didn't scale. It was only when the NFT wave hit in 2021 where people started saying, I've got a $50 NFT and it's costing me $50 in gas. This doesn't seem to work. And Solana benefited quite well from at that point, because finally the message of fast and cheap was resonating. It didn't resonate before because people said, well, who cares? And, Sam Bankman put $4 billion into it. So those two things really helped Solana, but I don't think it's any better than any other chain. Cardano could be perfectly fine too, other than the developer challenge. But most people don't want to, most people aren't going to spend a lot of time figuring out what each chain does better than the other, simply because no one is doing anything with them anyway.
Yeah, and in the developer stand, like at this point, there are so many options that any unnecessary friction really just kind of neuters you for no reason. And I mean, building things in Haskell it's not super intuitive as a language to use for this type of stuff. It was a really interesting choice, and I think it like made sense when all we really had to do to get a $1 billion, multi-billion dollar market cap was have a really compelling looking white paper and seem like this was going to be huge in 5 years. And now that doesn't really matter anymore because incentives are better to build elsewhere. Friction is lower when you're talking about building elsewhere. I mean, even in the realm of like which compilers are best, things like that can let you basically write in one language and then easily put it into something else to deploy elsewhere. And now in the sense of like what can be vibe coded, like why would you take the time to try and get something to work in Haskell when the ecosystem is as small as it is,
Yeah.
And not to mention, like,
I think.
Go ahead.
You're being generous when you say, in the old days, you just had to have a really good white paper. I mean, guys, Tron.
Okay, fair.
Take the Ethereum white paper.
ETH Junior.
Remove Ethereum, put in Tron with the typos.
Justin Sun said he wished he changed like, negligible things, maybe the font, but he said, I heard him say in an interview, I actually wish I would have changed less. It would have been better. From Ethereum to be Tron. Alex, and another point is like the distribution. It's so easy now. If you get on like Farcaster, of course it's not like anywhere near like major mainstream social media audience, but it's mostly Web3 blockchain people. And they make it so easy to deploy like an on-chain functional app in a couple of clicks in a timeline that can be instantly used and shared with like everybody who's interested in using this kind of thing. So the good stuff surfaces. You've got MVPs, you've got feedback, like idea to product is just, it's frictionless. And in that world, like if you got to sit down and you got to learn something, it's a barrier to entry.
Yeah. Maybe AI will help. But the most important thing, I think, when it comes to where you see the developers run to, it's just, can I get some of that token? Which is why when a token goes up in price, people will develop on it because they're being compensated with that token, and so it's worth more, right? And that was the whole rationale around the 2017 ICO bull market. It was Ethereum had gone from $6 in 2016 to $400 and then to $1,400, and people were like, hey, I've got a lot of money in Ethereum, what can I do with it now? I'm willing to risk it by putting it into different ICOs. And there were lots of people who wanted the Ethereum, so they were building on Ethereum. To this day, Ethereum, it's not a great chain to build on. It's reliable because since 2015, we haven't had really some sort of hack. There was one problem with early on with Ethereum where a bunch of us had put money into a smart contract and somebody figured out how to try to seize that money. But since then, which has been, almost 10 years, right? It is 10 years. Yeah, 10 years since it launched. It's been reliable. And when it comes to blockchains, the longer you are operating without a significant breach, the more credibility you have. Which is why Ethereum is still like next to Bitcoin. It's the one most valuable.
Well, another thing too to think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while I go, wow! In April, Ethereum was $1,400.
Isn't that wild?
That's $4,500. Damn. These things can shoot up fast.
Mm-hmm. And then something else to think about, just when looking at where developers go, it's like, where they can get access to the token, but it's also like I look at Ethereum. And I've always kind of scratched my head a little bit over, not really so much this year, but in the previous 3 years, as to why the amount of developers that are in the Web3 space, it's still so disproportionately so many people building in Solidity. You would have thought that some of that would have been eaten away with, Rust when Solana was just Rust, and a few other languages as well, as those platforms became profitable and money moved around. I would thought developers would chase the money as well, but especially now, like the picture's going to become more clear to me, because for 7 years I worked with data scientists, and they did stuff in open source and did open source competitions, not because they got money from it, because it built their resume. And so a lot of the times they did a lot of building to get jobs. And in this instance, I look at, all right, where's the future? Like, what's the sexiest thing to have on your resume, if you will? It's that you've been building on Ethereum and Solidity and using layer 2s and building there as well, because where's BlackRock? BlackRock's, putting a lot of their weight behind Ethereum. So it seems like a pretty safe bet that there's going to be a lot of job demand for people with a resume as a developer using Solidity and on Ethereum. And you're going to be able to cash in on that in a pretty nice way. Each year goes by, you're probably going to be able to get more and more money, because the demand is just going to grow and grow and grow, especially since we now had the Genius Act passed and stable coins are just getting the double thumbs up. I also read the Fed minutes meeting just like an hour ago. Stable coins were mentioned, it was 7 or 8 times by the Fed in their backroom meeting. So like stable coins, guys, are going to be the future, like obviously. And they even talk about it in the Fed. And what's the best exposure to stablecoins right now? It's still Ethereum. So I just view having a developer background on ETH as being the most valuable thing for you if you're looking to really cash in as each year goes by.
Paul Atkins at the SEC just released, I don't know if it was a memo, what the title of the document was, but he was talking about innovations in blockchain, and he was speaking specifically to like banks, institutional players. And one of the references in his sources cited, he was talking about like how if you're concerned about regulations or closed environments, you can very easily create a permissioned blockchain. And the ERC that he referenced was 3643. And ERC 3643 was first proposed in 2018. So ETH has been doing like closed, permissioned, maybe not regulatory compliant because we didn't have the law catch up to us, but in terms of the tools have been largely the same for years, and people have been using them. I'm pretty sure, JP Morgan's done it. Sonium, that was different. But many institutions have done many kinds of closed environments like that, and that seems to be the place they want to go to do it. So
yeah, I agree. And yeah, you got developers beget developers, and people who do DeFi. Ethereum really dominates DeFi. They're willing to put in a lot of effort in order to make money. Making money is a strong incentive.
Yeah.
And no one really challenges Ethereum on that. And when I think about it, just emotionally, I feel safest holding Bitcoin, and I feel next safest holding Ethereum.
Yeah.
And then it drops a lot after that.
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing to break. Even though I feel like, Ethereum is, I always thought Ethereum would be popular for about 2 to 3 years. Like during the crowd sale, I thought, okay. And then there'll be a bunch of other guys who just build on what they did. But Ethereum, which was like this experiment, has just persisted way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, it's stood the test of time, and it's got the activity. Somebody was asking a clarifying question about your statement, the longer something goes without a hack, but I'm inferring from what you said about ETH that doesn't apply to, say, Ripple or Cardano or you name it, one of those other chains. Is ETH is also used a lot. Like, it's one thing to exist and not get hacked, but it's another thing to exist and have billions of dollars in market cap and hundreds of millions of dollars in TVL on multiple protocols and not get hacked. like there's a distinction.
Right. Yes, that's exactly right. The more value that's embedded on that chain, the more attractive it is to bad guys.
Yeah.
And bad guys can wait a long time to find an exploit. And in fact, what happens most of the time is someone notices an exploit, but they don't talk about it. And then what they do is they try to figure out under what conditions would that exploit be worth the most to them. And then they wait for those conditions to happen. And then they, go and take advantage of it. And then, the next day people realize, oh, wow, this is something that needs to be fixed. That's happened a few times with Ethereum stuff, but now it's been many years. So I would say that code base has been pretty picked over.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned it being like something you thought would pass away. I remember a couple of times on the show you've talked about Mastercoin. And there are a lot of tokens that were, or like precursors to what we would call tokens even. I don't know if you were ever into, I have a friend who's into rare Pepes, and I'm pretty sure that was like Counterparty. I don't know if that's still around. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, Counterparty. Yeah.
From like, and that was really like before I was here, but I often like to tell people, like, if you're in touch with a source of historical information about the space, you really should like study the history of it when you can, because a lot of the stuff, it kind of rhymes, or it just informs your perspective about what's going on right now. Even though we're in new territory, like the history, it's rich.
Yeah, it is. Initially, everything was a fork of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right. Most famously, Litecoin.
Yeah.
Right. Usually the fork would happen and they would pretend at least to make an improvement, right? So you would have like with the various Bitcoin variants, it would be, we're going to reach finality faster, right?
Sure.
And that's valuable. There's something to be said about that. So people were doing that. But most of the time, the stuff was kind of junk. And it's amazing to me. I have some screenshots from Plentyx, right? Which was at one point had, I would guess 60 to 70% of the global altcoin market volume was Plentyx. Fucking crazy. It was crazy. And when I look at the screenshot, almost none of those coins now do people trade.
Yeah, it's wild. I'd be curious, William, do you have a recommendation for like a history of our space, like a video or a book, or like somebody, I don't know that we really have a historian who says like from Bitcoin through the ages. I recommend a book sometimes that CoinGecko, their team, produced, actually, called How to DeFi. And it talks, but it really is focused on like the inception of DeFi. It talks about the early curators, the early protocols. It talks about how after the ICO boom, like market makers started to emerge and what those agreements were like. I think that's good, but it's not complete. There's a lot of books about Bitcoin, but has anybody written like the one?
No, and like from a venture perspective, like how these things cascaded into more things, where the value ultimately got captured that no one saw. Most I think mostly now it's stable coins. Like I don't think very many people understood the value of stable coins until post 2020. But my colleagues and I talk a lot about this, because we're always looking at how things happened in the past and then trying to figure out, is that a helpful guide for what's going to happen in the future, right? A lot of stuff I didn't anticipate. I thought utility would be a lot more important.
Sure.
Oh, we all did.
It turns out when I think about it, the main value of crypto is it allows people to speculate. By the way, I'm looking at a black bear outside my window right now.
No way.
Make it
Can
your
you turn
friend.
the camera?
Yeah.
I want to see this. Okay, hang on. That is wild.
Can you see him?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
My God, he's just chilling.
Open up your door and go. Psst, 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 psst.
His ears are tagged.
Oh, yeah.
So he's
red ear.
he's a regular.
Now he's looking at me.
He just looks back. He's
crazy,
like,
man.
"Ah, you want?" No, I mean, if you want to,
That's pretty funny.
you can chase off a black bear if you want, but he's just chilling. He's not eating anything. Being a homie.
Out there.
Are you seriously going out there? Is he going out there?
No, the black bears will walk off.
He's good size.
Yeah, he is.
That's about as far as I'll go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, the black bear is walking off.
That is so great.
I
you
don't
were
know
talking.
if you could you see that very well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
we saw that
Everybody-
perfectly.
It was great. He was just chilling. It was like
I
he
was
was hanging
trying to
out with you
ignore
watching
it.
the planes.
Yeah. There was there's an apple tree there, and so he was just sitting there eating the apples, and I'm like, I'm getting distracted by this.
Yeah.
So hopefully that is not an omen for a bear market.
Yeah, right. That, or I like this comment from Tori. Said, "No better sign of a bull market than William Q going after the bear."
That's right. I chased him away. That's a good point.
You saved the market.
So when it's green candles tomorrow, we'll have you to thank. We're all going to be like, yes.
Yeah, I think literally chasing a bear out of your yard is the most like on the nose manifestation of a bull run that I could possibly imagine.
I think so. I like this.
I like this. That or the bear's pissed off now. I don't know. You can take it any way, but I think it's more positive than negative for sure.
You can believe when I go back to clip moments from the show, I'm going to clip that. And I'm going to be like, guys, the bear market's gone. Bulls are back.
And then people will just be like, wait, is that William Quigley? Wait, the coat, feather and wax? Wait, what's happening?
That's very funny.
That's going to be great.
I knew they were around here, but I hadn't seen one yet. So
I'm glad it got to happen on our show. And let me remind you, if you are listening in podcast land and you want to see that beautiful black bear, then you can check out our recording on your favorite social app. Get the links at rumshq.com, rumshq.com. And while you're there, check out the free Rise Up community. If you're trying to learn crypto, the secret sauce is you need to be in a group of friends who are not going to try and sell you something, who have been here a little bit longer, or somebody who's just getting here after you so that you can share what you know, you can ask a question, you can help each other with second opinions. That's why the show is called Rise Up, because that's what we're doing. When we learn, we grow together. We all are better for it. So if you've got a question, you're listening live or in the future, let us know. Leave it below. Leave it in the community. And I forgot to say, if you hear this sound during the show, that means that somebody somewhere has gotten a point for something they've done. And if you hear this sound, it means that somebody somewhere has lost a point for something they've done. Tonight, the only loser of points is Zora. I actually am going to give William another point for chasing off the bear market. And I'm going to give the bear,
points.
Yeah, 2 points at least. Okay. And I'm going to give the bear a point too, because honestly, the bear was really cool. And I'm
really adorable.
I missed a point for myself. I gave myself a point when Alex was trying to think of that word for the social place we talk about stuff. And I said zeitgeist, because what a great word. If you need a point for something, let us know in the chat. We'll be glad to get to it. I want to come back to this topic of Web3 marketing that we teased a little bit. But first, we have folks asking us about rate cuts. And our Will has been on the record saying that is the macro thing that matters. Almost nothing else matters as much as impending rate cuts. So, Will, do you want to read folks into this and give us, since you've read the minutes, what you're thinking? And then, William, we'd love your take on it too, what we're expecting, what we might see. But Mr. Watson, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. So just to level set the conversation for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, rate cuts being the most important thing, it affects global liquidity levels. So if the Fed cuts rates, makes it cheaper for people to borrow money, so more people borrow money. If more people borrow money, global liquidity rises. If there's more money floating around in the financial system, there's more money to go into assets. Typically, it means that assets go up, and it creates a better environment for risk on assets, like altcoins. So we care about this, right? That's why we care. rate cuts started last year, but they've been paused for a while because inflation has proven to be a little sticky, and the Fed really cares about inflation and the U.S. labor market, specifically keeping unemployment low and employment high. So it has been highly speculated that we still might get 2 rate cuts before the end of this year. And the market really wants that. That's been a big part as to why the markets have been running up for the past number of months now. It's been front running, hopefully getting 2 rate cuts. And if you go to the Fed CME, which is the official site you should use for trying to understand what the market thinks is going to happen at the next Fed meeting, there's still an 82% chance of there being rate cuts. That fell by about 5%, 4% today because of what was released, which was the Fed minutes meeting. That is a much more detailed overview of the exact conversation that took place by the 12 voting members of the Fed who decide on what to do with rates. And that happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so at their last meeting, whenever it was. I think it was 3 weeks ago. And in that meeting, they essentially were really, really, really focused on tariffs and the impact it could have on inflation. And they view employment levels in the United States actually still being pretty damn good. And it's near full employment levels in their terms. So they go, we view unemployment getting a little bit worse, but inflation is still the biggest concern. And we still have only just started to see the impact of tariffs on inflation. We think that tariff impact on inflation is just going to be a one-time thing. It's not going to be an ongoing thing, but we still haven't seen it really percolate across all consumer goods and services. So they said, we think we'll need a little bit more time to really kind of get a full understanding of how inflation is reacting to tariffs in the short term and how that could potentially affect long-term inflation targets. Because the Fed said we still expect inflation to get to 2% by 2027, which is their goal and target, but we want to make sure that doesn't change. Now, since that meeting came out, right, we just got all those details, but since then, we've had 2 hotter than expected inflation data points come out for CPI and PPI. Their favorite data point is PCE inflation data. That comes out not this Friday, but next Friday. And they went on and stated that if inflation proves to be a continued problem, the Fed is happy to maintain a stricter or strict to moderate monetary policy, which in layman terms means holding rates if inflation gets worse. And so since that meeting, inflation's gotten a little bit worse. So I read this as going, okay, given the data we know that came after this, given how concerned they are about inflation and wanting to take some time to take a look at more data and how inflation is being impacted by tariffs, it's definitely leaning a little bit more so to the side of, hey, maybe in September we don't get rate cuts and they hold rates for another month. The Fed CME only said we lost like about 4 percentage points in terms of the likelihood of rates being cut. So we'll see what happens. Everything is really dependent now on what Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, says on Friday as he gives a speech at Jackson Hole. And personally, I expect his speech to be pretty neutral. I think he's going to come out and say, we'll take a look at the data. We'll make decisions on the data. You know, we see some weakening in the labor market. We see the impact on inflation. I don't think he's going to say too much, though. It's going to be bearish or really bullish because, again, they don't get their favorite inflation data point until a week after that speech. And I think the market hears that neutrality and goes, that doesn't sound super reassuring, and maybe takes a little bit of a dip as a result before we get PCE inflation, is what I think is going to happen. But that's speculation. Everything I said before that is the current situation we find ourselves in.
Beautiful. Thank you for the summary. I'd be curious to know your take and get our guest William's take on what is likely what we speculate might happen if we get the rate cuts we anticipate. If we don't, maybe they go more aggressive, or if they go less aggressive. Like, we see what we think is most likely, but is there anything that's, I don't know, particularly great or particularly disastrous? This is, far from my area of expertise, and I'm here to learn.
Well, what I will tell you is the market has been terrible at forecasting. right? And there was about a 2-year period where I was pretty good. I think I did not think that the Fed was going to cut rates for a long, long time. A lot of people thought they would, and they did. As you remember, they held out for a long time. Obviously the market was right. We should have been cutting rates as we were debasing our currency, but we didn't. Or we should have been increasing rates, but we didn't. Now, a year ago, we were a point higher. We were at effective interest rate of Fed funds rate of 5.3. Today, we're at 4.3. The market is estimating, as that graph just showed, like 80%. That's an inferred number that from basically the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, that we're going to do a 25 basis point cut to between 4% and 4.25 instead of 4.25 to 4.5. Quarter point cuts have rarely done much, for anything. I think what's more noteworthy is a year or year and a half from now, so the end of 2026, the market, through these inferences we see from Fed fund futures, shows us cutting the rates by 50% from where they are. So going from like 4.25 to 2.25 in a year and a half. And I don't see that happening because I do think there's still a lot of worries about inflation. And obviously, Donald Trump would love that to happen. To put it in perspective, we pay about $1 trillion, a little over $1 trillion in interest expense a year right now, the U.S. government. And a few years ago, 2020, we were paying $500 billion. So $500 billion increase is a lot, Yeah. Like Donald Trump would love to have $500 billion annually, by the way. You can put a terminal value on that, and that might be worth $6 or $7 trillion of value. Wow. So there is we've got $30 trillion of interest-bearing debt, 37 trillion in total, but 37 trillion interest-bearing, 30 trillion interest-bearing, and paying $1 trillion a year on that, so like 3.3% a year. The U.S. government would love to get some of that back, but as you know, like the way money and interest rates work, you take from one, you give to another, or vice versa. So senior citizens, people who are savers, like earning interest, because for like 15 years, none of us was earning interest. And now we've gotten used to earning a little bit. So I think the rate drop we'll see over the next couple of years will be much slower than what Trump would like, because inflation is always going to be the principal concern. And man, that really spanked us a few years ago when we got up to 9%. So that's my take on it. Strangely, even with the reduction in interest rates that we've seen in the last like 2.5 years, mortgage rates have barely nudged.
I'm seeing more people talk about that.
Yeah, it's like, and I think this has been surprising to the Fed, right? Because cutting mortgage rates would lead to $1 trillion of money in the pockets of homeowners every year, and we just aren't seeing it. The markets are not responding the way the Fed wants. They believe that inflation is still a concern, and that the rates can't go down as fast as I think some of the people on Wall Street want them to.
Do you think that's a Jerome Powell thing? Magic Internet Money, one of our friends in the comments, said that he thinks that's the case until Jerome Powell is out, that he's gone in May, but until that time, he's in charge, and he's not going to make a move as fast as a lot of folks would like.
Yeah, and to defend him a little, he got so burned when inflation kept going, and remember, it was transitory. Remember that word, transitory?
Transitory inflation.
Burned on that.
Yeah, it's transitory. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And it went, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and at 9 he broke, right? And he said, "Oh shit, man! Rates got to fucking go up fast." I think once burned like that, you only retreat very, very cautiously. Like I think he would much rather just be abused for keeping rates relatively high. They're still good, I think, but relatively high, versus being wrong again.
Yeah.
And so I think until he's gone, he's going to be very reluctant to lower rates.
The other thing too is if I had that job, I would just be like, okay, the job market's still pretty damn strong, and inflation is at 3% now instead of my 2% target. It was at 2.4%. Now it's back up to 3%. So I'm not going to cut rates. I want to see inflation going down. To me, it'd be that simple.
I will say something slightly different, which is, I know the perception is the job market is strong, right? I have grown to really detest the Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers.
Oh, they've been total shit.
They're so manipulative. Your audience may know this, maybe they don't, but I think it's about 12 weeks. If you are unemployed for more than 12 weeks, the U.S. government decides that must mean you don't want a job, right? And so you're removed from the most common measure of unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
So there is 94 million capable Americans from the age of 18 to 64. So 18 to 64 who are not disabled. There's 94 million of those people who seemingly don't have jobs. Now, some people say, well, they're working in the underground economy or whatever, but I don't know. But they're not W-2s. And that is, I'm always shocked by that number. We only have 330 million Americans, and there's 92, 94 million, something like that, who don't work, able-bodied who don't work. If even 10% of those people said, we really want to work, and that number got factored into unemployment would look terrible. I also, because I'm in tech, I hear, and I know I'm in I'm in this slice of the market that's been really punished, but I know so many college-educated people who want to work and have skills who cannot find work. And so I feel like that labor number is not reliable. Do you
feel at all like the survey instruments we use are out of date? Because the way that's calculated right now for folks who are not read in on it is there's surveys distributed to about 60,000 eligible households. This is covering 110,000 people. It excludes people who are under 16, active duty military, people who are institutionalized, and they divide the country into regions and then smaller areas based on demographics or geography, and they're randomly selected. Each house is in the sample for 4 months. They're out for 8, then back in for another 4. I have never gotten a survey like this. I think the response rate, we don't have good figures for the most recent ones, but is usually about 85%. And I just feel like a sample size of 110,000 people for a country with a population, what are we at, 350 million now, it seems small to me.
No, it's not small. It's not small. It would surprise you, but in statistics, you basically use formulas you look at the population set, and then you look at what size sample would I need to mirror that population. And generally it's not much more than 2,400. Okay.
I guess it's interesting because when I was in graduate school a couple years ago, 7 years ago, and I took qualitative and quantitative methods, so not a professional researcher, but I remember a lot of people talked about what is or isn't a statistically significant sample size. And the math, unless I'm wrong, that's like fractions of 1%. Am I wrong that it doesn't matter how big the sample is? It matters how big relatively it is.
You can basically, as a broad rule of thumb, you don't go much above 2,400.
Got it.
And you get a representative sample, the whatever it is, the P sample, this will tell you how closely your sample represents the actual population.
Got it.
And so I think the number's big enough. I think the sampling methods though aren't so good, and we have to mention the fact that when it comes to things like inflation, it's so hard to get your head around it because the federal government takes things out of the bucket of things they track prices for. If the prices become too volatile, well, that means if they go up too much, right? I've always struggled with this one. It's like, energy's never in there because, it spikes. But you pay for energy. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So energy should be in there. So I know somebody tries to make an argument that the bucket of things that is in there that consumers spend money on, it still is representative over time, but that the things in that basket change all the time. And so getting a hand, to me, it's not a coincidence that the U.S. government pays money to people for inflation index bonds. We also have what are called COLA, cost of living adjustments, that are baked into things like Social Security. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out if the U.S. government knows that expenses go up as those cost of living percentages go up. Well, we're just going to calculate those cost of living percentages to always be between like 2 and 2.5%. So I think a lot of the government data is not so good. When Trump recently fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I actually was a little excited about it because I thought, he's going to like clean this up. These numbers don't mean much anymore. They're all just like, it's getting to be a little bit like China, where the government tells the statisticians the numbers they want, and those guys come up with the numbers that meet the government's requests. But instead, I think he got rid of the BLS person because her numbers weren't positive.
Underreported the jobs. Yeah. Is the
right.
story.
Yeah.
Oops.
So we have to I would love to have more independent data.
Yeah. Me too. We had a really good question from the audience that I'd love to address. Alex, you addressed it in a comment, but I'd like to make it public for people in podcast land who are wondering the same thing. But first, I have a question. Do you know, William, why they don't include energy prices in all those indexes?
Well, the stated reason is because they're too volatile.
No. The reason is
because they don't fucking have to.
I just wanted you to know that. The question we have from our audience, you're right, of course, but the question we have from our audience that I would love for you guys to answer, Alex, you've been answering it in the comments, is can you guys explain? You mentioned, William, interest rates, and Alex, you answered this. Who is the government in debt to? And can we zoom in just a little for people who are unfamiliar with how this government debt, government interest, like our payments, that $1 trillion works?
Yeah. So broadly speaking, as everybody has heard, there's $37 trillion of government debt. That's by the way, federal government debt. That's not the states. So our municipalities. So federal government owes $37 billion. 7 or 8 billion is government agencies owing each other. So if you're an accountant, with intercompany liabilities, they cancel each other out. So there's 30 trillion, what we call public debt. and the term, so intergovernmental, owed to each other branches, you can ignore it. And then public debt is debt that has an interest rate associated with, so somebody owns it. And I think, I know I haven't looked at this in a while, but I think about 2/3 is held by Americans or American institutions.
Yes.
And 1/3 of that is owned by foreigners. But
yes.
I could be off somewhere. Yeah, is that about right?
No, that's pretty accurate. 2/3 is owned by us collectively in various different places. You know, the government owes itself a lot of money in places like Social Security, Medicaid. The Fed owns a lot of that debt, 2/3 of it, like you said. Outside of the United States, the last third is in order. Like the top three holders are actually Japan in spot number one. Internationally, followed by the United Kingdom, followed by China, and then a few other more superfluous holders.
Yeah, they don't own as much as I thought. You know, China, I think, is like 500 billion or something.
Japan's in first place with just over $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Thanks, Japan.
Yeah.
Arigato.
So the U.S. government debt remains the standard, right? It's it has a zero risk of default. That doesn't mean it's you can't lose money holding government bonds or government notes, but it'll never default. It could drop in value because the stated interest rate is below the effective interest rate. But as Silicon Valley Bank learned, right? So you can lose money holding government bonds, which I think we need to do a better job of teaching people that when we talk about U.S. government debt has a zero risk, it's zero risk of defaulting. And the reason it's a zero risk of defaulting is because the U.S. government also owns the printing press. So it will always be able to pay since it just prints more money. But what would happen to that money, well, it's going to go down in value. As crypto people are very good at looking at the debasement of the U.S. dollar, and how much the purchasing powers have been hurt.
It's our national pastime.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite hobbies.
Yeah, it really is. And when you see it, even like over the last 30 years, you see it's substantial, the amount of debasement. Hence why people own crypto, right? Because it's turned out that's been a better thing to hold on to than US dollars.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of opinions in the comments about national debt, about Americans being in debt to the government, about owning national debt because of the zero default. Don't Disturb Her said, I'm buying. And Magic Internet Money says, all I need to really know is this a good time for me to buy a motorcycle? In case you missed it,
yes,
Magic Internet Money
dropped.
Yeah, and William Quigley just literally chased off the bear market. So I think the answer
it's gone forever.
Buy. If I had Jim Cramer's soundboard, I'd be buy.
Yes. We still are waiting for our great bull market, right? That still hasn't happened. I talked to you guys a few months ago, and I'm like, well, let's see in August what's going on.
Yeah, that's right.
The fact that we've got roughly 3 more months in this 18-month post-halvening cycle that began in April 2024 and will end in November 2025. We've got about 3 more months, and we've got less than a double. We're up less than 2x from the previous high. We're about up 2x from the price of Bitcoin at the point of the halving in April 2024. That's pretty lame, right? And
that's a good clip.
That's not so good. And then Ethereum has obviously recovered a bit, but my God, for most of the bull market, it was the post-halvening period, it's been doing poorly. And so the great question that everybody always is, asking is so is this time different then? Do we not get that post halvening bump, and I'd say it's pretty certain we're not getting it, at least in 2025. We needed to be at like 300.
What if we get what if we get 2 interest rate cuts? What if we get ETFs for ETH and SOL, and we've got staking, and we get some nice inflows there, and people are feeling better about, I don't know, the political unrest. Maybe there's a peace deal in Ukraine or something that gives us a little buoy. Do you think it could happen, or is it off your calendar exclusively? You chase the bear for show, and that's it.
Now, maybe something in 2026 happens, but I recently put together a list of 20. I kept adding to it. Like, what are things that I would have thought would have been incredibly bullish for crypto since the low in 2022, right? So like the past 3 years, it was like July 2022 to July 2025. Like, what has happened since then? And I came up with 25 like freaking huge things, right? Whether they be regulatory or technical, or financial, like, literally ETFs. And it's pretty remarkable with all of that. You've only seen like Bitcoin go up, a little. It's done a little better than the S&P 500, which is like, what? Now on the flip side of that, I think we should not have the pullback that we've had in prior bear markets after the bull market run. Whereas we all know Bitcoin has generally fallen 70-75% from its high, and everything else has been 80% plus decline. Well, if we didn't get the pop, we shouldn't get the decline, which is why. So there was lots of big whales that were going to reduce their exposure to crypto in 2025. People who had owned crypto for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people have paused on that idea because they're like, well, I don't see the downside risk of holding it into 2026 because we never got that pump.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Ethereum is below where it was at its high in 2021. I mean, if you bought a stock in 2021 and you're underwater 4 years later, you'd feel like that was a loser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, and we have seen something. I always try to look at like very large cap tech companies that do better than Bitcoin and Ethereum, which traditionally was not possible, right? Because these things were going up 10x to 100x. But there's been quite a few companies that have done better than Bitcoin. And so what we would hope, therefore, is that, okay, Bitcoin won't always do as well as certain big public companies, but it's on a different trajectory. But as you know, that was a little disappointing with the financialization of Bitcoin in the last year and a half, especially ETFs. Bitcoin has kind of gone wherever the market's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see a break from that.
To be fair, though,
to be a hedge.
To be fair, though, Bitcoin's been following the stock market for like, I don't know, a year and a half or two, even before the ETFs went live, like, pretty damn closely. It had its momentary breaks, but for the most part,
since 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
When Wall Street got in big, it started to really mimic it, except, and to me, it operates so much like an IPO stock, a recent IPO stock, which when it's a risk on, that thing just does some multiple of what the regular market does. But when it's risk off, Wall Street just dumps it. One thing that may not happen, one reason that may not happen this time around is the $150 billion or so that's in Bitcoin ETFs. It's a lot of that is retirement accounts and IRAs, 401ks, and those people tend not to really move money quickly in and out of those things. So that may keep it stable.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, is it is totally as simple as Bitcoin hasn't gone as high, so it won't go as low. But how I've always thought about it is that because the financial system and institutional players are here, although it's been a retail-led market, institutions have been selling all year. Retail has been diving in at crazy record numbers. I think the last number was retail's bought into ETF products at $190 billion in the year, and institutional sellers are net negative $40 billion on the year. So they've been selling into retail's buying. But you have your hedge funds in, playing the game, and they see, hey, I can dive into Bitcoin and crypto, and I can get a pretty quick 20 or 30 or 40x from when the ETFs did, not X, I mean percent gain. And in their world, that's the greatest thing ever. And they're like, cool, sell all of it now, or like a huge chunk, because they're not used to these fast 20%, 30%, 40% moves because they've been playing in the stock market, and they're playing with huge, massive positions because they're the traditional financial market. They're massive, and it can suppress Bitcoin's price because they're willing to sell at lower points than your traditional crypto degens were, because a 20% gain for them is something that is a top 0.1% trader or hedge fund on the market, right? So, they're just much more willing to sell than the traditional culture of the degen market.
And we have to always, whenever you talk about returns, you've got to say unlevered returns, right? So Wall Street is not doing unlevered investing in crypto. They are freaking highly levered, like could be 20 to 1. So if they go up 5% in a month, well, if they're levered 20 to 1, then they doubled their money that month. And so Wall Street has always been reckless with leverage. And so I think when we see big swings, that's generally what you're seeing. By the way, one reason why we had a pullback in Ethereum is because of unwinding of a lot of levered positions, where people were taking their staked Ethereum and restaking that and doing that whole round robin thing we've seen multiple times. And when it goes the other way, right, the prices drop. In Ethereum, we had a record withdrawal. I think we hit a few days ago $3.6 billion of staked ETH that was set to be withdrawn.
Big Q.
And so the Q, it went up to like 13 days to get out. By the way, I wrestle with this so much, whether earning 3% over the course of a year is worth having as much as a 13-day delay in getting out. I really wrestle with that one.
Not to me.
I think a lot of people do. A lot of people wrestle with that. I hear that question often. When people learn about staking, the first thing they ask is 2 to 3% really worth it? And then often people who start to stake the first time, it seems like a common user journey is you don't know about lockup periods, withdrawal periods, and you don't know how those are possibly dynamic or affected by market dynamics. And so a lot of people have the unpleasant experience of trying to withdraw. They can't, because they can't unstake for, whatever, how long until it gets to them. That's really
when you want to unstake, so does everybody else.
Right.
Like you look at the queue and it's like, but it's like literally a day. Right. But when you're going to want to get out, trust me, probably everybody else is too. And now you're stuck in that queue, which can punish you. I've been wondering about that for a while now.
So that brings up an interesting point. We were talking before the call. I would love to do a round of this. We were talking before we kicked off about like weird top signals or weird bottom signals. Last time you were here, William, you told us if I could give you one tip, it would be buy when people are fearful. When the fear and greed index is showing high fear, you buy. And then when it's showing high greed, forget about it. That's not the time to buy. Pay attention. You will make good returns. You only got to focus on Bitcoin. It's simple. But we were also talking about like, what is something interesting you see? I did not know you were going to chase a literal bear on the stream. That would definitely go into my like, this could be a top signal, or like we're about to blast off. But what are some interesting things? That's one of them. Is like, I get on TikTok, I get a huge volume of interest. More than any other algorithm, it's the best for discovery. And so when people want to search for something, it's one of the top places they go. And it's one of the easiest places to surface what people are looking for right now. And when crypto is having a moment or is about to have a moment, I get the same kinds of questions. I get way more comments. Our show gets way more views, way more activity. And the questions reflect that there are more eager and newer people who are paying attention, or they're paying attention more seriously. Maybe they've been lurking, but now they want to know, what should I buy? When should I sell? All those things. So that's my interesting top signal indicator, is if you're a creator on social media, you have access to a dashboard that nobody else gets to see. I would be curious to know if you guys have any others, top signal or bottom signal, and you cannot say William chasing the bear.
I'll give you
two.
Okay.
That are top signals. These are like very strong, I would say, enthusiasm in the air. The first is phone calls asking me, how do I set up my ledger? Right.
Okay.
So when people start saying, oh, I want to set up a ledger. And then the other is when Bloomberg or CNBC say, hey, do you want to be on tomorrow or the next day? So they don't give a shit about having someone associated with crypto when the market is flat. As soon as I start hearing them, I'm like, oh, okay, there, bubble is in the air, or enthusiasm is in the air. So those two, I would say, are very strong. And the third one I would say is that if I'm buying real estate, which I do periodically, people are like, oh, and we'll accept crypto, right? So when they're like, oh, we don't mind accepting crypto, all right. So those are like three that I've just known over the years to be pretty good signals that the sentiment is strong.
Nice. The Ledger Index, the Bloomberg Index, and the crypto for real estate. Gentlemen?
You know what's funny? That the most colloquially accepted top signal amongst people who reside full-time in the crypto industry is when too many people outside of our little space become aware that we exist. We're like, oh shit, that's it. It's all over. When in the meantime, when they're not paying attention, all we do is whine about how they're not paying attention. The second they're like, all right, let's take a look. We're just like, oh shit, sell everything. I've always thought that was hilarious.
yes.
It's like the age old when your Uber driver brings it up to you, like it's time to sell everything, and I'm like,
yes.
guys, shit, wait, I accidentally onboarded somebody. Quick, sell it all. It's going to zero.
Yep.
And I'm like, this is so stupid. This is all so dumb.
Or here's another one. When you get the text message saying, this is from Coinbase, your account needs to be addressed. Please click on this link, right?
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of those.
You guys have gotten. Yeah.
We see a lot of those lately. So it makes me a little nervous. And I will tell you,
I've met people who got scammed because of them.
That's one that we honestly, William, we get dozens and dozens of DMs every week. And one of the suckiest things that I have to do as somebody who is just like a public facing educator that people trust to tell them how it is here, especially when they're new and they're learning, is I have the distinct displeasure of having to tell somebody in real time, like that website, that token, that person you're talking to. I'm so sorry to tell you this, but they are actively scamming you right now. And here's what's happening. And you tell them all the signs, you tell them how you know, and tell them how to report it and tell them what to do. And I mean, it's so painful. And it's so frequent.
Yeah.
And by the way, it used to be where you remember the Nigerian email scam, I'm a prince, and all, now those were really targeted at old people and all that, but we were kind of wise to those, most of us. But the new ones, the phishing, you have to be incredibly good about this.
Yeah, I had somebody clone my voice, and the way they do it on, our social media is they've got my profile picture. They bought 100,000 followers. They've botted a bunch of views, and they reach out to people who are in my comments, and they are asking a regular question like, "Hey, which cold wallet do you recommend?" And they'll be like, "DM me, I can help you." And it looks like me. The username looks like mine. Nobody knows. And then that person says, let's continue the conversation on Telegram or whatever seems innocuous. And then they send you a voice message. And my God, I played it on the air last week. It sounds like me. You can tell that somebody's like holding the phone up to a speaker, but like it's so good. You know what I mean? It's wild how sophisticated they are.
Quite good.
Yeah. These are going to get very sophisticated, all the scams. And I know Coinbase in particular has it has the right type of customer who can get scammed very easily. Because a lot of people I know fell for that text message. And all I said is, if Coinbase is reaching out to be helpful, it's not Coinbase. All right. That's all you
Yeah. Double things.
Will, what about you? Do you have a top signal for us to add to the collection?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be your stereotypical, you go to the barber shop or something. Because for me, my barber, who I've gone to for years, he knows that I'm in crypto because he just asked me one time, he was like, "Hey, you know anything about this crypto stuff?" And I was just like, "Buddy, I have something to tell you." And then he took me through his whole story and stuff. And he made some mistakes, and he has a much better trading strategy now after the past couple haircuts where we've talked about it. But I walked in today and he goes, "Oh, Will, take a seat, man." I get in the chair. He spins me down yesterday. He goes, "Dude, crypto's looking great right now." And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, I really was. I went, "Oh my God." I looked at him, I was like, yeah, dude, it's good. Have you sold anything lately? He's like, no, I haven't. I'm waiting for the next blast off. And I'm just like, "Hey, buddy, hey, Mike, we might want to take a little haircut here." He's like, yeah, you're probably right. I'll look at it later. And I was like, "Okay, good, man. I hope you look at it." And then I literally
like actively selling everything.
And then today there was a rally, and I was like, "I'm gonna sell some more."
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So there was a question that I just wanted to hit, and it kind of relates a little bit to something you said, William, about if you don't have the same kind of blow off top, theoretically you may not get the same kind of crater.
Right.
It was expanded upon in a comment just asking about the length of a potential bear market. And we heard this last cycle, right? That like the potential was that, hey, if institutions show up, they won't want to lose all their money. So the bear market won't happen, or it will be like a week long. And then it was years because, as we know, when you have that much money, or even when you're just that good at it, it doesn't matter whether it's going up, down, or chopping sideways. You're going to make a shitload of money. It really doesn't matter. So the length thing kind of went out the window. I would say, though, just given like how it's progressed and where we're at, this time my pushback against the idea that the bear market, the next one, would be shorter, is because I think that we have made this thing so hyper partisan that now public opinion of it is much more cemented towards the negative. In that, I mean, if we continue to keep it as partisan as it is, when the power shift happens next time from Republicans in power to Democrats in power, crypto has become a talking point for the right, which means that when they transition out, Democrats would not be as motivated to keep the train going with innovation and the, deregulation of the space and more welcoming, all this yada, 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 whatever. They're going to want to poo-poo on it to score points with their base, who have become anti-crypto because of the adoption of it as a talking point by the right. So I would say
the reason why you don't have to worry about that is because your assumption is that the Democrat Party represents the broad base of Democratic voters in the United States. They do not. They represent Wall Street. Wall Street is such a strong lobbying group. It's the strongest lobbying group in America, is financial services industry. The financial services industry is super excited about crypto. I might have mentioned this before, but Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the largest money manager in the world, $12 trillion worth of assets under management. Larry said recently that the Bitcoin ETF has become his most profitable ETF. It has surpassed his S&P 500 ETF. What's really crazy is his Bitcoin holdings are about 100 billion, and his S&P 500 ETF is about $1 trillion. So it's 1/10. The Bitcoin ETF is 1/10 the size of the S&P 500 ETF, and he makes more money on the Bitcoin ETF. So for that reason, the Democrat leadership is the same as the Republican leadership when it comes to being beholden to financial services industry. And so while I understand the logic of what you're saying, I think they'll just they may say a few negative things about crypto, but in general, they're going to do what the financial services industry wants them to do.
Exactly. And I should clarify. Yeah. I did not mean my theory to come across as my saying that I feel like the Democratic Party is properly representative of the people that they claim to be elected to govern.
Yes.
But the thing
I didn't think you did, but
the thing that I fear is that as is the case every time we have campaign season, leading into an election, you have like these talking points that no one is ever going to do anything to solve, right? Like, pick anything. We use it to sell election ad placement. We don't actually plan on passing any legislation to fix any of these issues, especially when you can win an election running on the promise to try to fix it. And then all you have to do is come up with a reason why you couldn't. You can run on it again next time. Totally on board with that. I worry that crypto sort of just becomes this thing that for no reason we can't ever like unanimously agree on like would be a good thing to advance. And I mean like amongst the people, not necessarily the representatives in government themselves. And so regardless,
all the legislation, the Clarity Act will be passed. The Genius Act will be passed. I don't know about that weird Surveillance Act that's supposed to prevent the U.S. from issuing a stablecoin, but the Clarity Act, which is just an entire set of processes for how the government will regulate crypto. I think once that's passed, that just gets baked in. And while you look at an industry like the military, right, the defense contractors, that's normally associated with Republicans, but those defense contractors have subs in every state and they're unionized. So the Democrats, they make lip service about it. Well, we don't want to like give a lot of money to the defense contractors, but the truth is their base of union members are like, we want to build more ships or build more planes or whatever it is. I kind of think that's the way crypto will go. It's like every major company, particularly consumer-facing company, will have a stable coin. You're going to have Bitcoin in the treasuries of many, many U.S. companies, and then Wall Street is going to be making so much money. I think the Clarity Act is so important because it basically said you can do low-level DeFi with a very light touch on the regulatory front. Well, we all know DeFi is like a carnival for making money for Wall Street. So I think you're going to see a huge number of additional DeFi products that are being hawked by Wall Street. And I don't think the politicians are going to pull the plug on that because that's just driving economic growth,
Yeah, I will say that in that realm, I'm 1,000 times more excited by Clarity than I am Genius. For sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the Genius Act definitely is going to spawn a lot of stablecoins, but in terms of what guys like us can make a lot of money in, it's much more in the Clarity Act than it is in the Genius Act.
Yeah, No, for sure.
Have you got a list of 25 things guys like us can make a lot of money in, William, that you're selling now for just $2?
So first, subscribe to my course.
Yeah, of course. Live with the bear. If you pay $100 extra, you get a photo with the bear.
Right.
You too
That'd
can
be
chase a
worth
bear out of
$100.
William Quigley's yard.
Oh my
Exactly.
Okay, as we prepare to round up the show, I do want to get your take on one last thing. I want to come back to this thought on Web3 marketing. Just we talked a lot about it earlier. Like, stable coins, every company's going to have them. Bitcoin, it's here to stay. It's going up, it's going down. We're not worried about those things. But for everybody else who's trying to make it in crypto, you got founders, you got venture capitalists, you got people who are retail investors, and they're trying to tell the good stuff from the crap. In the past, you've said you got to know what a blockchain does because that'll do 90% of your job for you. But for the people who are in the business, and they just keep doing the same marketing thing over and over, which is like show up when they got a token to pump, get you to participate, to buy it, to farm it, and then give you some free money. And then, they piss off. They don't have a product or a service really that generates revenue. Like what? I don't know. Maybe it would help Alex for the audience. Do you want to give a summary of like the state of it and what we're seeing as an antidote? And then we can talk about why people are so slow to embrace it. Go for it.
So effectively the thing that kind of kicked me off down this what is now effectively a crusade for me is this idea.
We're recruiting you to Alex's crusade because he's sick and tired of talking about it. And we need someone to take over.
It's been some pretty fire tweets though, and LinkedIn posts.
Yes, mostly for LinkedIn, but putting them on Twitter as well. So the thing that kicked this off was really just I had a phone call with a good friend of mine who works in marketing, and we were talking specifically just about how in the world of marketing there is a constant push for new trends and new advancements, and new data comes out and we draw new conclusions from it, and the game of marketing changes. And I find it very interesting that crypto, Web3, as it were, is like the bleeding edge of the bleeding edge of the bleeding edge as far as the tech space goes. We're just like experimenting with the most harebrained out there shit you can imagine. And yet we're running like the same ads and marketing and messaging playbook that you probably would have gotten 25 years ago. And it barely worked then. And we're like, no, this is as good as it gets. There's no reason for us to try to stay up to date with marketing trends or, what works or what doesn't, or like look at any data. Because you could just lightly Google current like most effective marketing strategies, and you would come up with a whole list of shit, and no one in crypto thinks they need to do any of it. And so just for context, these numbers are astonishing too. 80% of brands, this particular data set comes from a chunk of time between the years 2021 and now. 80% of brands have either maintained or increased their influencer marketing budgets just in the year of 2025 alone. And we are now at the point where half of every dollar spent in marketing goes towards content creators. Half. That's the highest it's ever been. 73% of brands prefer working specifically with micro or mid-tier content creators as opposed to ones with as many millions of followers as they can possibly pack in. 92% of brands are using or open to using AI specifically to support influencer marketing workflows. 80% of consumers make in-store purchases now based on influencer and content creator recommendations. 94% of Google clicks go towards organic results, while only 6% go towards paid advertising. And yet we are still just dumping money into paid ad campaigns and like hoping for the best when, significant data shows that's like less than 10% of all of the traffic. LinkedIn posts, significantly higher. Although interestingly, LinkedIn has one of the highest, the most like favorable towards the paid ad ratios of clicks per ad based on organic versus paid. And I think that's honestly because they make it very difficult to spot at a quick glance whether or not something is a paid ad versus on other platforms where it's very obvious. 75% of users never venture beyond the first page of the search results, and that's where organic listings dominate. And it goes on. Like, there's not a single one of these statistics, let's see, trust score. 84% of consumers trust brands more when creators they know, recognize, and trust represent the brand than when the brand represents itself. 94% of brands believe that creator content delivers better ROI than traditional digital advertising. It just goes on and on and on and on. And yet in crypto, we just have these sort of like blanket net cast campaigns where some robot DMs everybody with a pulse on Twitter with the same cookie cutter, like, hey, creator, love your content, shill my shit, and gives you some embarrassing rate. Unless you're a personality, then you can get a skyrocketed rate to shill something that you have no connection to, barely, the weakest understanding of ever. And then as soon as you're done with that paid out campaign, you move on, you never talk about it again. Extract what you can, get the hell out of there. And then we wonder why these things never last longer than the initial flash in the pan. So my thesis here is that like all of these brands, all these companies, I shouldn't say brand because I don't think anything in crypto really has a real brand identity at this point.
Pudgy Penguins.
They're
like it's the only thing. It's the only thing that has a brand.
But it's I would say it's only just close. It's like the best example, but only just starting to get there. So I'm mystified by how many of these brands are okay with hemorrhaging money like this for super terrible ROI. I think we've like trained ourselves Pavlov style to just get that quick conversion from a free money campaign, and we call it real. And however many users linger there hoping for airdrop number 2, we call that our long-term user base. And then my question specifically about all of this nonsense for you, William, was from the venture capital perspective. How is it that VCs are not more up in arms with the fact that a lot of these companies and projects and protocols that they've perhaps invested in are using these not supported by data, incredibly antiquated, known to be bad marketing and messaging tactics, and flaming out 20 minutes into their lifespan after torching their entire runway on an airdrop, some liquidity seeding that just gets mass extracted and bridged elsewhere, or something else.
Or a Kaito campaign.
Variety.
VC is like, send it to Kaito.
Like, I feel like VCs would be more up in arms about that, or they...
I will say this. So VCs are not marketers generally, right? But what they do is they look at the math. And in traditional, let's say the app space, where there was a lot of sophistication around it, it was what's the cost of acquiring a user? And VCs would usually know, depending on the category, they would know the cost. I'm making it up, but it costs Uber $100 to acquire a customer, and they expect over the lifetime to extract $5,000 or whatever. I remember in the video game space, it could be very expensive, or in the skill-based gaming, the gambling part of it, where it could cost $500 to acquire a poker player for your poker playing app. But those what you have there is you have very large number of consumers who are spending a predictable amount of money. The problem with crypto is it's terribly inconvenient and difficult to use. And the VCs, and I would say like crypto people in general, have never even asked the question, how many people use that blockchain? Remember the stat total value locked? Remember that stat?
Oh, yeah.
Like that was such a fucking lame stat, because you would get a couple of whales who would get, some tokens from the blockchain creators, and they'd say, can you keep like 200 million, 300 million of ETH or whatever on our chain? Okay, I'll keep it there. And now they're like number 2 or number 3. And so it's very hard to do effective marketing when there's no users. There's buyers and sellers of tokens, but I don't call those customers. Mm-hmm. Crypto has buyers and sellers of tokens. It does not have users.
Agreed. And I think
very hard to market.
That's one of those things that I've said now. I wrote several longer posts about this over the last week or so. This idea that if the only thing keeping anybody in your sphere is the hope that they will get the carrot or get another carrot, then they're not really there. And that's not a user, that's not a customer, that's somebody just hoping for a handout. And I feel like almost the entire industry at this point is built on that. And barely anything has really made an effort. Like the example I always go to is when we're advertising this shit to people, we are largely just like trying to explain to them some sort of like very technical detail or some sort of like very pie in the sky revolutionary gobbledygook. Whereas if you look at something like Red Bull, my favorite example, the drink is never in the commercial. And they're selling a vibe. They're selling this idea of taking risks and doing crazy shit and having adventures and doing whatever. And it's very attractive. It makes you want to, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, drink the Red Bull. I don't give a shit what it tastes like. But in crypto, there are really no, like when we see cold storage wallets, we're selling this one's air gapped. This one supports this many things. This one does this. This one looks like this. This one you can tap to do this, whatever. But no one's like cultivating a brand that someone could like identify with and really enjoy, like this idea of this sort of I don't know what to do during civil unrest and protect your shit and do whatever. It barely exists. And it's so weird to me that no one's really trying to cultivate like a specific brand identity when so many Web 2 companies have framed their entire thing around that with almost no focus on the product at all. And they're the ones that make all the money.
You do have the problem of you have to have customers to even understand what's resonating with them. Totally. And also tech in general has always been terrible at marketing. And like I remember when Steve Jobs came back to Apple after Gil Amelio was fired in 1997, he was brought back. The company was in terrible shape. And 2 years later, 1999, he had what was in computing the biggest marketing development up until that point in history. And what he had done was he allowed you to buy a Mac with 3 or 4 colors instead of the olive drab. That was a huge thing. It's like, oh my God, you can get a PC in different colors. That constituted the pinnacle of consumer marketing for the tech space. And crypto is like the mentally retarded child of like marketing and tech. It's like there's no expertise. So part of the reason why it's so hard to use and because people don't think about that. So we have I think we're going to wait a long time. Here's what you should do. Watch the way JP Morgan and BlackRock and Stripe and PayPal, watch the way they market like tokenized tokens, real world assets, stable coin yields. Watch how they're going to do it, because I think it'll be more akin to the Red Bull thing than it will be to like the way we would do it. Is we're going the early days, and even to this day of tech, it's much more a utilitarian argument. If you've ever looked at, and I have done this in the early 20th century, like 1900, 1910, 1920, when consumer products companies were emerging, national consumer products companies, and the advertising was all around the utility, right? Eat these oats because they taste better, they last longer, they're more value or whatever. And that's where tech is. Sophisticated marketing about mood and like how you will feel about yourself if you wear this watch. Your friends are going to like you better. That it's not going to tell time better, but you're going to feel more important. That type of stuff comes a lot later. I still think we're too early to have developed that.
Yeah. I just feel like we have such an opportunity to like skip this whole dumbass growth phase where none of that shit exists, because we could just choose to do a better job. And it blows my mind that we won't make that choice.
Because people ask me a lot. I'm an old guy. People ask me a lot, guys my age. They say, why the hell should I own Bitcoin? Why the hell should I own crypto, right? And I'm like, okay, let me tell you why you should own it. Other than the speculative aspect of it, it's a very libertarian argument, the one I use, which resonates with some people. If you hold gold, you probably should also hold crypto, but that's more an emotional thing, right? So I think there's still a tiny percent of people who really are holding it. And you are right. The opportunity is huge. I'm old enough to remember people saying, why on earth would I need a computer at my house? I'm not a secretary. I don't do typing or, word processing. It took a long time. It turned out the reason you wanted it was because your kids wanted to play video games. That was the reason. Yeah. I thought that was going to be the first big consumer adoption factor on Bitcoin, on crypto, is going to be around video games, but it turns out it's still too freaking difficult to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be stable coins at first, probably, unless
businesses,
unless some game comes out that is just a lot of fun and really takes the world by storm, kind of like Pal World did. Not a crypto game, but an indie game that really blew up. There'd have to be something like that. So we'll see.
It's definitely going to come from
the indies, that's for sure.
Yeah, that I agree with. Just as a callback, because
never do it.
The point was brought up about cost of customer acquisition costs. Interesting. So in every measurable category, the cost of customer acquisition is lower with content creator led, influencer led, like organic content marketing. This does not mean, by the way, like paying someone who has nothing to do with anything to make you a shitty commercial. That's not what I'm talking about.
No, I get it.
Interestingly, the smaller the influencer, the cheaper the customer acquisition costs across the board. Because statistically, they have the most impactful, like, trust worthiness scores. And the most loyal followings, like amongst people who are in that like 1,000 to 10,000 follower range, like across social media platforms.
Yeah, what you're getting at,
it reminds me of a direct response television back in the mid 80s to then into the 90s. You would buy the cheapest programming, which was, after midnight on any local television station. You could get, for a half an hour, you might pay $10,000, right?
Like a Tony Robbins thing?
Yeah, or like, the George...
the Foreman
Grill.
Yeah.
Suzanne Summers, the Thigh Master. There were like these... you would get like people who were in LA but hadn't really done much recently, but were still remembered. And DRTV was huge because you would... there were a certain number of people who were watching TV late at night, and they usually were kind of they were the types of people who could be influenced by, like,
George Foreman,
an old sitcom person, or George Foreman. Go, I'll go buy that. And I remember when I was working in Hollywood, we started to realize that the cost of acquiring or selling something to somebody, national television versus these local stations, and doing it like after 11 p.m. when the standard programming ended, was dirt cheap. Right now, that space is just packed with, especially on cable, packed with all kinds of, weird products. But you look at them and you like, how could that product actually afford the programming? Well, because programming is still pretty cheap.
Right, and now it's TikTok Shop.
Mm-hmm. Well, and interestingly too, that has also contributed to like a chink in the armor of creator-led, organic marketing, because now again calls into question like the motive of the person with the thing. And if you've noticed the trend of how TikTok Shop videos have shifted, you see a lot more people like, this thing is kind of a piece of crap, but they sent it to me. I have to make this video for you. And the comments on those are overwhelmingly positive, as in only authentic ad I've seen all day, stuff like that. I'm way more likely to give this a shot because of your honesty and your openness. And that's why I keep telling every founder, fact check me. I tell every single founder, project manager, CEO, COO, C-suite, anyone
Fact check yourself, brother.
who's trying to advertise. No, you're going to fact check me because you're usually on the call with me. Who's trying to like advertise their protocol, their project, and figure out like how to get it to resonate with people or how to connect, how to convert someone. I'm like, just get on there and tell them everything that sucks about your protocol and what you're trying to fix. And people will respond to that way more positively than you trying to get up there and tell me this is the revolution in a box.
The anti-commercial.
You know, Alex, this is the second time that you have convinced me that I should give people rates who are in my DMs all the time. Like, hey, what are your rates for a video? I just tell them some number and then see what pile of crap comes by. And I go, yeah, I'll make a video on this, but I'm going to totally tear it to shreds. And if they say yes, then I'll just get paid to tear this cryptocurrency to shreds.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should really respond to them. There's like 100 in my DMs. I definitely
say, for me, I buy a lot of products, and in the last probably 4 or 5 years, before I buy the product, I will always go on YouTube and TikTok and see what people are saying. And I can obviously tell if it's like, this program is sponsored by blah, blah. Okay, I'm not going to get a real thing, right? But when it's a guy, and I do a lot of, mountain biking, if it's a mountain biking channel I follow, and the guy's like, hey, by the way, I use this thing and I really liked it. Sometimes they'll say, I'm sponsored. Sometimes they won't. But when someone is really telling you the truth, and when someone is, I've never understood national television advertising where you get some celebrity or some movie star who talks about this great smelling cologne or whatever. I've never understood who would consider that a legitimate, review of the product.
I mean, it would surprise you, because if it didn't work, do you think they'd spend money on it? But then something comes along.
I know. Yeah, it's unbelievable how much people are swayed by like some musician, whatever, who says, I like this, right?
But
I think,
again,
though, Evan,
the tide is turning. Oh, go ahead.
Just to your point, though, I think that data on like customer acquisition costs, when factoring in like micro influencers doing organically created content on their own page about something compared to the cost of a national ad campaign.
Oh yeah.
That data is just like not well represented. It's out there. It's very easy to find if you look for it and you search for the right thing. I just asked, Perplexity Deep Research to pull up like every measurable statistic about the cost of customer acquisition compared to different influencers of different like caliber compared to TV ads and paid social media ads. It's not even close. But I think that to push back against they wouldn't do it if it didn't work, there's just this recognized cost of acquiring a customer because you have to like overshill everything to everyone until you basically just bully them into buying the thing long term because it's been beaten into your head so long, and that's like the accepted norm. Yeah. But there's a better way.
I should mention something because it goes back to my days in the beginning of the internet when advertising, initially it was taboo to advertise, but I was running this incubator or working in an incubator, and we were, I think it was Net Zero. Net Zero was a toolbar you would download, and it ran on your browser, and you got free internet access if you ran it. And then there would be this scroller of ads, right? So we're going around talking to all these agencies, not the companies, right? Because there's an intermediary, and those are agencies. And anyone who took economics is familiar with the term agency cost. What is agency cost? It's the price you bear for allowing someone to act on your behalf, because they never perfectly act on your behalf. They have some selfish reasons, right? So they take a little or keep a little. Well, this is what I learned about these agencies and how they were doing advertising, especially back then. If you're an agency person, especially back then, the internet was just considered like the great unwashed. We would go and we would say to these national agencies representing national brands, you could acquire way cheaper, like a millionth the price, 100,000th the price. And they would just look at us with disgust. And the reason is because people who work at major advertising agencies They want the prestige of opening up a magazine and saying, this is my ad. They want the prestige of working with the cool celebrity, right? And so I kept pushing, why do you guys not want to do this? And eventually one of the insiders was like, dude, of course it's better for the brand to go your way. Your math is really compelling, but I don't win any awards with stupid internet advertising. I win the awards when I do a national television ad, or I'm in a big glossy thing, or I've got billboards, all of which suck because you can't even track them. But that's the reason it's persisted for so long.
That is such a good point. And I've talked about that too. This idea that like we think it works, but you actually have no clue if it works, because like all you can do is prop up and say like, well, here was our total sales, and then, you know, total revenue, whatever, and our total spend, but it was spent across all these different categories. But I have no idea how many people were converted off of that billboard versus this one creator who talked about you remember Stanley, great example. The thing that blew Stanley up was nothing to do with anything that they did. It was that woman whose car caught on fire when she had a Stanley in her cup holder and she made a video about it. The company exploded because of that.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Yeah.
Ocean Spray. Why did Ocean Spray have a? It's because Dogface did his longboarding video down the on-ramp to the freeway, holding a full-ass bottle of cranberry juice in his hand. Had nothing to do with anything that they did. They didn't do shit. That one TikTok, that one woman whose car got caught on fire with a Stanley in the cup holder, it cost them 10 cents and an hour of their time to post that video. And it did more conversions for them than 2 years of Super Bowl ads would have done for them.
Yeah. Well, it's we're back to that again.
Well, and it's full circle because it's like you said, when we first saw you, William, the incumbents are not going to be the ones to disrupt. That is the cycle of innovation. It has to be that way, that it's going to be the indie games. It's going to be the startups. Maybe not the startups in the crypto space yet, but if we have anything to say about it, then hopefully, the people who are listening to this kind of conversation can give up the television awards and do something actually meaningful to create a new wave, to change something, to shake it up, and then get the benefits of all that.
Yeah.
Although you know what I've always found kind of funny is that in order to make our voices more meaningful on TikTok, we apparently have to show up on the traditional media that has a hard time tracking all this shit so we can get a blue check mark.
I don't know, man. Forget about it.
Yeah.
So when your Bloomberg guy calls you, William, and you can't show up, you send our Will. He'll put on a nice suit, and then we can get him a little blue check mark or something like that. So
Evan, Alex, we got to get it too. So William, if you know some other people other than DJs,
I'll put on my nicest snapback.
Yeah.
And I'll dress up too, but they'll be like, who the hell sent this guy? Okay, we have had a great conversation. We've got to land the plane. I would love to hear your final thoughts. If you got a last question, a good joke, or word of wisdom, let me remind you, the best place to share it is where the show lives 24/7. That is in the community. You can find the link to join our educational community at rumshq.com, rumshq.com. It's the very first link there. It says, hey, join our educational community. That is the best place to connect with us. We are never going to reach out to you, us or DJ William Quigley. We are never going to reach out to you directly, personally, to give you some free Bitcoin, to ask you to join our club, our investment group. None of that. That's a scammer. They're trying to take your money. Just block them. I'm sorry to say, there's never any free Bitcoin. Let's go around and do a quick round of final thoughts. William, my final thought for you is, if you are ever sick and tired of DJ music and you're like, you know what I could really dig is some easy listening acoustic music on this patio with this bear, brother, you call me and I will be there so fast. I'll even bring marshmallows to roast. I've got the guitar on deck and all I want is to hang out with the bear. I cannot believe you chased a bear off stream, dude.
Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. That apple tree's got a lot of apples.
He's coming back for those apples for sure.
Do you have a final thought for us or the audience? Anything we can do to support you, amplify your work, or keep us tied over till next time?
Yeah, I knew there'd be a pullback in Ethereum and Bitcoin because it's August, and they both had a decent little run up. October, November, pay a lot of attention to. If we're going to get any kind of really rapid pump, it's going to happen then. And the alts could be 2026 phenomenon as opposed to 2025. Time betting. That's what I'm hoping will happen.
Good deal. Alex, Will, have you got a final thought for us?
Yeah, my final thought right now would be if you guys are feeling like an itch to put a new position into the market, it's totally fine to wait and see how the market settles, whether it's a blast off and settles or it's falls and settles after Jerome Powell's speech on Friday. Because likely Jerome Powell's speech on Friday is going to be the closest short-term, biggest event driver in markets globally to the bull side or bear side. And it's totally fine to just see what happens, let the market settle, and then take a position. Yeah. So just, a little bit of patience.
Alex, have you got a final thought?
Also, that bear was a paid actor.
So can I mention I sell bear spray? And if you put the
You sell bear spray?
Yeah.
Of course.
Could have been an
do.
emergency,
Oh, yeah.
but fortunately I had Quigley brand.
And
It's
then
the
there's
one
this,
you trust.
The TikTok shop opens up and it's just bear mace.
It's
Oh
been a
my
commercial
God.
the whole
man.
time.
It's been a commercial the
Suckers.
whole time.
I'm gonna get that bear. I'm gonna stick like a URL on that bear. Is what I'm gonna do.
I just can't believe that happened.
So he did say the bear was tagged, but we didn't mention what it's tagged with. It's tagged with a QR
exactly.
code to William Quigley's bear spray.
Hashtag.
Is this bear too close to you for you to scan? You should have bear mace.
Honestly, though, crypto branded bear spray is brilliant, and I don't know why that's not a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know either.
Yes,
That's really good,
yes.
actually.
That would be
Bring
a top
it to you
signal.
whenever you're in Wall Street.
That would be good.
Okay, Alex, do you have a real final thought?
That is a real.
That
What do
is
you
a
mean?
real
That's a real final thought.
Okay.
Legit.
Just
Then let me very quickly tell you, we've had a lot of points tonight. Zora was the only Gwump. TradFi Crypto Bulls, happy to get 30%, got a point. The Bear got a point. Will, you had 4 points. I had 2 points. And if you can believe it, Alex and William Quigley had a tie for a victory tonight. You both had 8 points. So
Wow.
what your prize is that you got to see the bear get chased off, and you're going to have a ton of sales if you manage to throw that QR code on. Everybody in the audience, congratulations. You made it through another show. Come back tomorrow because in the morning we are having our friend John from Gauntlet. We're going to talk about DeFi curation, everything you wanted to know that happens behind the scenes with some of the best in the business to do it. William will tell you, they kill it. Gauntlet is great, right? They're fantastic. And of course, you can catch all the replays for all of our episodes at your favorite listening platform. And the last thing I want to tell you, looks like what Will's going to say, is it the Silly Chart Contest?
Hell yeah, it's the Silly Chart Contest.
Okay, tell them about the Silly Chart Contest and how we can win your money.
Yeah, so I'm giving $100 USDC to whoever makes the funniest TA pattern on whatever asset you want. You can submit it. Any of your silliest chart art can be submitted in the Rise Up community. The link to join is on my bio, Evan's bio, Alex's bio. You can also go to rumshq.com, find it there. No, Evan, I don't want to see any yet.
Oh, I got to show you at least one. I want William to see
Oh.
this in case he gets away. People
Oh my
are,
God,
are
it's
doing
beautiful.
some really good ones. We got a bunny.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We've got the
Show me no more.
parachute. The dog.
wanna-
No, I got to show you just one more. There's one that I really liked was Fartman and his Bitcoin chart.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. It's
wow.
gorgeous.
And there was even, look at that, a little Rise Up morning show chart. Someone did the logo. Okay, if you want to see
Not
the
looking
rest,
anymore.
you got to go to the community. Will's not going to look. You have until when tomorrow to submit?
Until the show starts at 8 a.m.
Until the show starts in about 11 hours. So go. The link is in all our bios. And we appreciate you for being the very best part of what we do. Thank you again, William. Thank you, everybody. Until next time,
Sounds good, guys.
stay safe, be well, my friends. Rise up.